For joining in for the session today. I'm Abhinav. I'm Senior Manager for AI courses at Kickstart, and I've been working with many SMEs from Tier 1 companies for the last couple of years. And my primary experience is in launching courses focused towards engineering and management professionals. And I'm going to be your host for the evening. Let's give a couple of minutes more for the folks joining in, and we'll get started with that. Our panelists today are Andrew Castlo and Prya. Andrew is a data scientist at Government Meds. He holds a PhD in mathematics from Ohio State University. Parivesh is leading the he's an applied scientist at Amazon. He holds an MS degree from Columbia University. And they will be discussing about the various aspects and change in the tech requirements for the applied Gen AI roles for engineering managers, for the technical managers. And for today's session, will be basically uh, the session will be largely about the panel discussion around how the adoption of Gen AI is changing the skill set expectation for all the tech professionals. So we'll first start with sharing some market insights on the job positioning to set the context and jump right into the discussion with our expert panel. We want the session to be very interactive and we'll be taking questions from you as well. So without further ado, let's get started with the basic introduction. In the chat, I'll be opening the chat for everyone. Please tell us what exactly your name is, where you're joining in from, what company you work for, and what role you're working in. The chat is open now, so please feel free to drop in a small intro to every one of us so that we'll be able to cater to you better. I can see Balram is joining. Hamid is working as an architect at a healthcare company. John has joined in. I can see Hamid has 15 years of experience in cybersecurity. Nice, nice. It's good to see. James is joining from Illinois. Nilesh is joining from San Jose. Swalesh is joining from Seattle. Nice. Really good to see all these diverse set of job roles, people joining in from different corners of the country. It's really good. Cool. So on these lines, we want to keep the session very interactive. So make sure that you drop all your questions in the Q&A box. Once we turn off the chat, the Q&A box will be open for you to drop any questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll unmute you and you can speak and ask questions from our panelists. Anything related to your career, anything related to your AI ML developments, please feel free to drop those questions in the Q&A box. So moving on, let's get right into the job market insights, right? So first of all, in the session, we'll be also walking you through the JD analysis, job description analysis we did for 10,000 job roles. And over there, we could filter out a few insights related to the most in-demand skills for MLEs as well as data scientists. And when we talk about these job roles, we can see classical ML, neural networks, generative AI, NLP, ML ops, computer vision, ML design. These are the ones that are most commonly appearing in the job descriptions of the top companies out there, which are hiring for MLEs, Gen AI based roles, right? And when we talk about the data scientist roles, classical MLE has also come in. It has become a commonplace these days to see classical ML in the job descriptions. Neural networks, NLPs, generative AI, right? So I would also like to ask Parivesh and Andrew regarding their experience, right? What are the different requirements that they see these days in these job roles, conventionally compared to the conventional job roles to compare to the new job roles that are coming up in their domains. Over to you, Andrew. Andrew Parivesh.
1 second. I was trying to come on video. I somehow cannot. But hey, hello everyone. Maybe I'll take the lead. Yeah. So I have worked. So my previous stints, like my education was in physics, and then I initially was working as a quant in the finance industry. So I worked at a hedge fund and few big banks before transitioning to AI. So I worked at a startup, then worked at Amazon in search, and then I'm in the midst of transition now. Um, so the things I've been focusing on since last 3, 4 years, even before the word Gen AI became like a rage, were like transformer-based models. So I have been like working really close with text data and increasingly a lot of multimodal stuff I'm doing. And What I'm finding is that a host of skills, more like a confluence of skills are needed. But again, depends on what you're trying to do. But by and large, a good sweet mixture of programming, um, understanding the underlying math, um, if possible, and then I think making sure that a model sees the light of the day. And once it is put in production, then you can actively monitor it and uh, let it course correct itself through whatever retraining mechanisms and what have you. And Generative AI deployment is not an easy thing because of many reasons, above and beyond the latency implications and whatnot. But also the Gen AI's habit of, let's say, having hallucinations or doing things like domain adaptation and all these kind of things that you have to care about, and to make sure that a good Gen AI solution is out in the wild versus a different kind of real-time serving requirement for any other kind of model. So I will talk about that when I come to it. Over to you, Andrew, if you
Sure.
want to give any more insights.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was trying to turn on my video too, and I can't do that. So we can speak. But yeah, I definitely think Parash kind of hit everything on the head. I think on our end, on my end, because I guess my role as a data scientist, right? I mean, a lot of it, what we're looking for, like in my current role, is kind of, I mean, yeah, you know, you have classical ML, neural network, all that good stuff. But I think honestly, just basic understanding of statistics, right? Do you understand statistics? Do you understand probability? Do you understand how to think about things probabilistically, right? That really is going to be the big thing. Can you actually talk about the thought process? Can you critically think about certain aspects of this, right? Data scientists, you know, at a company, again, what a data scientist means to one company might mean something different to another company, right? So, like, I'm a data scientist, you know, that might mean something different to, you know, Parvish at Amazon, right? And it's totally okay, right? Data scientist is a very broad thing, but I think you can do that. Understanding things, you know, statistics, probabilistic kind of mindset is really good. And also, I mean, another soft skill is going to be personal skills, right? As a data scientist, you know, you do have to do a lot of stakeholder management. You got to talk to stakeholders. As a data scientist, you might have clients, depending on your current role, which is also tons of fun, right? So, just, you know, those kinds of things are what desired in future day.
Thanks, Andrew. So now that you mentioned, yeah, actually. So is this a trend that you're also seeing across different levels of experience as well? Like, what is the difference that you're seeing when it comes to years of experience at your organization,
Um,
right? When it comes to MLEs, when it comes to data scientists?
So I can talk from an Amazon perspective. So within Amazon, there is something called Amazon Science, which has essentially four kinds of roles. And think of it more like an increasing gradation of math slash programming that you might need. So for lack of a better word, the first thing is BI engineer. So they are primarily doing a lot of things like creating views, dashboards, and what have you. At best, they will be doing a lot of SQL or maybe on RDBMS, or they might have like some use cases where they're writing queries on top of distributed data sets. And then that is followed at Amazon by something called a data scientist. So again, data scientists at Amazon might entail primarily working with um, like doing more like data analysis, like you have a data set and then you do a lot of statistical analysis on it using pandas or any of those things, and then maybe building machine learning models um, with sklearn, nothing very fancy in terms of really thinking about deep learning model and taking it to production. But this same definition of data scientists might not transport to any other company also. So that caveat is there. And then we have two other job roles that are there at Amazon. One is a research scientist, and a research scientist is definitely required to understand AI on at a lower level, and their mandate is, of course, to push the frontiers of research. So they do a lot of things, but without a lot of mandate to, let's say, put things in production. So they might be doing less coding, but a lot of like coding around DL frameworks and thinking about the next and greatest thing in a model. Um, and applied scientists at Amazon are more like, okay, their mandate is use the latest and greatest um, AI models, but you have to put things in production. So they definitely will have to lend a helping hand in ensuring that their AI solutions is solving an actual customer problem. So they might not, they do publish, but it's not like there is a gun on their head to publish, but there is a gun on head in terms of you have to make sure that your research is useful and is integrated into Amazon products. And the research scientists and applied science roles need an amalgamation of proper coding and depth and breadth of AI and machine learning. Yeah, over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a great call out, right? So again, what data scientists do is going to differ from company to company, right? So at my company, data scientists are going to be, as in my current role, I guess if you want to be very technical, you can call it a full stack data scientist, right? So we have junior level roles, we have mid level roles, we have senior and then staff, and for the most part, a lot of it's just going to be, it's going to vary depending on what you can actually do under guidance, right? So at my company, we're doing the feature engineering, the processing. Sometimes we're even doing the data engineering out of the JSONs, out of PDFs, out of data lakes, right? Getting it in there, processing it, put into a structured format, and we are exploring it, analyzing it, doing a bunch of statistical stuff to look at it, depending on the problem. We can build machine learning models with it. We can do where we're also doing stuff, probably to the extent that applied scientist is doing, but definitely using like models to fine tune like language models, for example, to do things, building out RAG applications, as well as put them into production. So we're kind of handling that entire lifecycle pipeline on there. And what kind of differs the roles from roles, years of experience is more going to be like, for example, a junior role, they're going to require a little bit more guidance, right? I mean, you're going to need to kind of guide them along a little bit. Somebody who's in a senior level role might go in there and kind of work with them once a week, twice a week, make sure they're able to do their work. They might need guidance and help with certain things. They probably can't lead a stakeholder meeting by themselves, right? They do need to have guidance there. Whereas a mid-level role can handle a lot of that there, right? They don't need so much guidance. They will need some stakeholder management help and things like that. But at this point, they're pretty much ready to go. They can handle the entire life cycle. And then once you start getting into the senior and staff realm, they can really be able to handle things by themselves. They can put things into production by themselves. They can fix things into production by themselves. They're also doing a lot more mentoring. and helping out junior, mid-level data scientists to do their work. So again, it varies from company to company what a data scientist does. That's kind of what I'm seeing on my end.
Great answer, Andrew. Great answer, Parivesh. Thanks for that insight. I can see some of the questions also coming in. So we'll quickly move and cover the slides that are there, and maybe we'll quickly run to the questions, right? Jump to the questions, start answering them. So based on all the analysis that we have seen, right, when we talk about all the top companies like Atlassian, Amazon, TikTok, Google, Nvidia, all these companies, we can see generative AI, emphasis on generative AI more and more. And as Parivesh and Andrew mentioned, that generative AI is becoming is rapidly integrating into the industry as well, right? So it's common. This trend is common across MLE roles as well as the data scientist roles, and uh, that's what we want to hear from our panel as well, right? The importance of it, how exactly it is being implemented, how is it being integrated into different projects, what different projects are coming up. So we'll take up all those questions one by one. But before that, I can see some of the questions, one from James, one from Balram. Like James has asked, like, what is the difference between AI and ML, maybe in the context of the scale, right? What exactly is differentiating between the two terms? Then the second question that is coming up from Balram is, will there be any QA roles in ML AI domain, or QA needs to transition to data engineers first, right? So, Parivesh, Andrew, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
So, I mean, the way I look at AI and ML, and I think primarily more often than not people do, is that I mean, machine learning is when the features that the model is going to see is still interpretable, at least when it is going to be fed into the model. And typically AI will be something that will try to combine different modalities, or might do too many nonlinear transformations to count. So the idea is more towards so both of them optimize things at the end of the day. I think it's more about the kind model family that you deal with. And the tendency in AI is primarily to deal with like very deep neural networks, as opposed to ML, which I think at least colloquially, I find more often than not people using shallower machine learning models, the usual suspects like regression models or logistic regression and support vector machines or decision trees and what have you. But in my eyes, they also have commonality in terms of, okay, you do not have like a step one to step n kind of an algorithmic approach to solve a problem, just like you would probably sort out a bunch of numbers, right? So from that sense, they are trying to automate and give you an approximation of a solution for most of the input cases. But there will almost never be a ML model or AI model that will always work for all kinds of inputs, unless you're trying to learn something deterministic or something that is like really easy to figure out anyway. And AI or slash ML can be an overkill in those cases.
Sure. So I think like Parivesh has clearly demarcated between AI and ML, right? I don't see a lot of difference between AI and ML from what I understand, Parivesh. Is that the case when it comes to
Yeah,
practice?
model families change, the challenges change, right? For example, in AI models could be extremely big. So you will
Mhm.
never worry about, let's say, a decision tree not fitting, not being able to like be hosted on a single GPU on a single node. Whereas some of the models in the AI, for example, the current LLM models, it is impossible to fit them on a single node, right, and a single GPU. Then even to train them, you will have to think about distributed training.
Right,
Run inference on them, you will have to think about how to run inference when your model, some of the layers are is residing on a given GPU on a given machine, and then another set of layers might be on another node on another GPU, and things might need to talk to each other and communicate and all, right? So I think the training challenges and the inference challenges are very bespoke to the model sizes and everything. So I almost never find people when they say ML think about those kind of challenges. But like I said, I don't see any big. Some people use them interchangeably, so I would like no one to quote me on anything. So these are just things that I have felt people mean when they say AI versus ML.
Got it. Thanks, Parivesh. So, Andrew, you are coming from healthcare industry, right? So, based on your experience, like, is it the same? Is the case just the same in healthcare industry as well? How does this change?
Yeah,
These
that's a
terms
good call.
change,
So I
yeah.
think on the yeah, I mean in the healthcare side, so when I think about ML, right, it's you think about it, and I think Parag kind of said it in a good way, right? You think about these AI models, or in some ways, I guess loosely trying to use these, I guess, neural network structures to solve problems that involve some type of unstructured format, right? It's you need this
Correct.
nonlinearity to be able to interpret that, right? Whereas in ML, a lot of the data that you're looking at is gonna be tabular, right? Like these features are very interpretable, right? You're gonna be able to pull it in, you're trying to predict some target, and you have features to kind of predict on that target, and you can usually do that fairly well, right? With a simple boosted tree, right? I mean, there's been a bunch of research to show that neural networks and boosted trees aren't too different on tabular data, anyways, right? So, I think it's kind of the big difference for me that ML is more, you can almost hit on tabular data and it works very, very well in a structured format. When you start going into the unstructured ideas, like text or image or audio and things like that, I mean, that's when you're really going to sort of want these more, beefed up models. And the healthcare side is very similar, right? We have a bunch of ML models that are pretty much running on tabular data, right? Because that's all we really need,
Mhm.
to do what we need to do. We also have some more generative stuff that involve, like I said, like a RAG pipeline and things like that. So we use it if we have to, but yeah, that's kind of how I would see it on the healthcare side.
One angle, though, in the medical field might be when, let's say, you're trying to build models for detecting tumors and whatnot, in which case you might need to piggyback on
Mhm.
computer vision models, for example. And there, the challenges could
Absolutely.
be that you do not have a plethora of, let's say, on the internet, you can find a lot of cat images and dog images and what have
Mhm.
you. But
Yeah.
something very, very particular to a medical area the data might not be plentiful. In those cases, you have to,
Mm.
be very artful about using deep learning. When you have to do things on less data, how to do it meaningfully has its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
In
Interesting.
fact, one of the very famous models came from the medical area. That is all the rage in, and that gets used in the generative models in image, which is UNet. So UNet literally came from the medical world, and then found its way into the diffusion models and all the decode. So it is used for decoding from embedding to an image in almost all the famous diffusion models that we have right now.
Got it.
Yep.
Thanks for that insight, Parivesh and Andrew. Moving to the second question, will there be any QA roles in ML AI domain, or QA needs to transition to data engineers first, right? So how do you see the career trajectory for quality analysts like QA roles? And like, how do you see that?
So, okay, so I can answer that question at least from. So QA, for example, in the area of ML and AI is kind of fuzzy because, like I said, the thing that you're deploying is not a deterministic model. So it can totally happen that the model will not always work for all kinds of inputs, right? So the functional testing that you might do here is not things like a bunch of assert statements that you can use and you will all. It is more like, okay, I ran a model on a bunch of things. My overall metric should be in the ballpark and maybe slightly better, so you can go and deploy. And the error analysis here sometimes is so useful that the scientists will benefit more from looking at that error and incorporating the feedback and making your next citation better. So I personally feel that the QA, and I have seen this more often happening, is that the QA is more scientific in terms of like being a little away from the typical assert kind of testing that we might do. Um, and so what I find is that, a lot of QA people are more like domain experts. What they will do is that they will find corner cases and places where the model might fail and all. So I find a use for them in finding out like in stress testing the model on corner cases and these kind of things, and then talking and interfacing with the scientist and making sure that the coverage on those kind of edge cases get better. And if there's model is making a very simple mistake and it's rampant, then even calling that out. But more often than not, that error analysis is done by the scientist himself. Again, depends from group to group. That's what my experience has been so far on the QA angle.
Is it consistent with your experience as well, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, QA is kind of fuzzy on the on the data science side. Usually, like, to Parvish's point, like, when you train the model, you do try and check some metrics. You try and understand if you're seeing something in the area that you would expect to see. But there's no clear cut tried and true process with it, right? I would almost say that QA for me is almost more like the ML ops side, right? What we do there when analyzing the model in production. But yeah, that's pretty similar to what I would see, to what I would expect to see in the current role right now. So yeah, not much to add there, but yeah, it's pretty similar.
One other small aspect you might do is sometimes, sometimes people want some data to be labeled. So a lot of times there is a crosstalk between, let's say, a labeling company that could be outside, and you might be writing a lot of labeling guidelines, and you might be QAing a lot of so typically you send a large batch, but the first batch that you get from the labeling company, you will like to QC it to see how good it is and whether it is adhering to labeling guideline or not. So I've seen such kind of roles also, but like Andrew said, a lot of those roles sit in the ML ops role technically because label consistency, yeah, those kind of things are one aspect of the overall thing. Like
Overall
uh,
system, yeah. Okay.
model, yeah, model performance on things is just something that scientists benefits most from doing himself rather than abstracting himself or herself rather than abstracting it to someone else.
Right.
Got it. Got it. So when we talk about transition, right, can you share a brief about your journey, how you moved to the current AI ML roles that you're at, Parivesh, and you, like based on your experience,
And do you want to go
how your
first,
journey
please?
was?
Sure. Yeah, I can go first. Yeah. Like I was mentioned, my background was as in math, right? So I did my PhD in math. Always really, enjoyed math. I love problem solving for the most part. And for me, I kind of realized that I did not want to go into academia. That's a whole another story that we can talk about later. But we didn't realize I didn't really want to do that. So kind of wanted to try and see what industry was like. Kind of heard about this thing called data science, right? Like, what is data science? In Ohio, Ohio State has a bunch of different programs where you can actually go in and talk to various data scientists, intern, do things like that. And kind of how I found my current role. Current role, I kind of started off as an intern. I cover my meds and kind of just that, I think I really like it. I like internship a lot. I turned down a postdoc to do my internship because I really kind of believed in what we could do on the data science side. So that's kind of how I kind of transitioned. I got the internship, and then from there, they gave my kind of junior role, and then I transitioned into my current mid-level role. So it was kind of there, kind of using that problem-solving math background, and then just going into there. The one thing I did have to learn though was coding. So because my PhD is in pure math, right? So contrary to popular belief, pure math does not cover statistics or any Python, right?
Correct.
So I had to teach all that from scratch. I had to teach myself SQL. It was a big learning curve, right? But the thing is, the thing with like a PhD is that you're a professional learner, right? So you can teach yourself anything. So I had to go in and teach myself that, teach myself probability, and teach myself coding. But once I got up to that point, a lot of it was just kind of getting past that learning curve of being in industry for the first time. But yeah, that's kind of my quick intro there. But that's how I did that.
Pretty interesting. Over to you, Parivesh. Like, what was your
Yeah.
journey like?
So I studied physics in India, and I was in research, and then I came for my PhD at Columbia in theoretical physics. But everyone in Columbia was going to a trading firm, so took a lot of probability courses. But I took a lot of probability courses that were from the pure math angle. So I did study things like Sobolev spaces and these kind of things. So contrary to what people think, a lot of probability is also pure math driven. So I took a lot of them, and then after my masters, I chickened out and I joined Wall Street. But a lot of roles I did were very close to math, and I had to pick up programming. So I prior to my working, the kind of code I used to write was just like for loops, because a lot of that was mostly computation that could be done like that. And then, but then I started enjoying programming also. And then the good thing about that happened was that the AI world uses, our ML world uses a lot of math that is like also permeates physics and a lot of like linear algebra and stuff like that. So it was not a tremendously big switch for me from that angle. In fact, studying physics has been a boon because nothing intimidates me that way. In the AI world, the math wise, I'm sure Andrew would also agree. And that's a major advantage that way. And then after that, I wanted to be more hands-on end to end. So in my prior experience, I used to develop a model and then give it to someone else to develop it because I did not have the time to. I started working on something else. But later on, I realized I wanted to be more full stack end to end, and I started seeing that as a major handicap. So I joined a startup and threw myself in the fire that way. Had to do a lot of stuff myself, but it was a very good learning experience. And after that, I went to Amazon to work in search, where specifically I worked in autocomplete and spelling correction and related searches. So all of these areas use heavily deep learning, especially from an NLP angle. But ever since last some 6-7 months, like a lot of our, at least the offline things that we are doing are very driven by Gen AI cases. So things like creating synthetic data, using Gen AI as a label generator and all these kind of things, because search applications have to be deployed in the real world. So we don't have the luxury of latency coming in 100 milliseconds. It's not possible right now for the LLMs that we have. But all the models are transformer driven, for example, and I do teach Gen AI at IK also. So all the portions of Gen AI, in Gen AI 1, Gen AI 2, and all of those, I am heavily involved in that teaching here also.
Interesting. So one thing that I can see that is common across like between both your journey is that upskilling and real hands-on experience, right? Getting that knack of how exactly it feels to manage everything end to end, right? So when we talk about the skill set requirements when it comes to AI ML roles, right? What was the thing that you see the changes? Like, first of all, what changes do you see when you started applying, when you started looking up? And the ones that you see right now in today's market, right? The Gen AI, AI ML roles that are coming up. Andrew, Parivesh, in your experience.
Yep, sure. So Gen AI course, if you look at Gen AI carefully, right, like think of it like it's a gold rush right now. So everyone you see is out there with a shovel. And unfortunately, a lot of great diggers are also with a shovel. So because there were a lot of layoffs and all, there are a lot of smart people floating around at this point. But this is absolutely the perfect time to up level in terms of taking it slowly, gradually building up your skills. There are a lot of things that have come out, right? So it is not like there's no learning curve. I feel that certainly a lot of things need to be learned from a theoretical angle, from a practical angle in terms of training as well as inferencing. And one very vital thing that I have found in my uses of Gen AI in the enterprise is that the models, they look amazing. Let's say for run of the mill things, a lot of factual things and these kind of things. But when you start thinking of putting them out in the real world, there are a lot of things to discover that you will have to like hammer and chisel, even a very like a really powerful model. So taking a pre-trained model sometimes and between that and putting some LLM driven application out in the wild, there are multiple hoops that you have to cover. So that might entail actually fine tuning it on your own data. That might need you to maybe build your own vector database to support your RAG better. Or that might help you think about, okay, how do you set up infrastructure so that you can fine tune these models more optimally? And then also think about, okay, how can you serve them optimally? So serving infrastructure and what kind of different parallelism schemes you can use to optimize the inference speed of to support throughput and latency requirements of your applications. And then after that, how to make sure that, because LLM is a generative model, so how do you curtail it from recklessly going and generating any kind of stuff, right? So how do you constrain it to make sure that what it is generating is meaningful and not free form. A lot of those kind of things.
Andrew, what has your experience been? Like, I can see one of the follow questions as well. Like, how exactly math background contribute to your speed in transitioning to ML? AI and ML. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So I think I can kind of answer both things. So I think, so back when I was applying for jobs, right, I think the boom, so this was 3 or 4 years ago. the generative AI boom wasn't as big as it is now. I think like it feels to me like once like ChatGPT, for example, came out, that's when people wanted to start to bite on it, right? So nowadays you got a lot more job postings that want to try and implement deep learning models, right? ChatGPT model, generative AI, stuff like that, right? I think the one thing I would just caution with that, right? And Parvesh, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like a lot of positions, right? They want to try and use deep learning, right? When sometimes they don't really need it. I don't know how they want to use it. Or they don't have the infrastructure to set it up. And that's something that, I'd encourage you to kind of think about, right? If you have a company who wants to build out a generative model, or a big, language model, for example, ask why, right? And how. It's very, very expensive. And so you see these job postings that post that, but you kind of dig a little bit deeper and maybe you're looking for something a little bit different, right? So that's definitely something I like to keep in mind when talking to people about that. And so that's definitely one thing how it's changing. But then for me, like with a math background, like I said, it really helped because again, my background's in pure math. So it really laid that foundation and the base very, very, very solidly, right? So I think we kind of said, nothing really intimidated me, right? You see this new paper, that comes out from researchers, and it's like, okay, it's fine. The math is not scary, right? Like it's just math, right? Very fancy math. But other than that, you kind of have the ability to understand abstract concepts very quickly. I think that's definitely one thing where it helped me, right? Especially with these various types of deep learning kind of concepts, right? Once you kind of have a feel for it and the way you're thinking about it, it definitely helped a ton. So yeah, 100%. Once the math background definitely helped a lot by studying the foundation, studying the problem solving foundation to be able to pretty much take that foundation and then just kind of merge it to something else, right? So that's definitely the one thing I noticed with it. Because yeah, I didn't do a lot of coding, right? I didn't do a lot of statistics. I wish I would have. That would have been really fun. But yeah, I spent 6 years just studying the theorems for the most part. So.
Abhinav, I'm so sorry. Glad Parivesh and Andrew to be here, and glad that all of the people are also here, right? So I'll try to give you both a bit of rest so I can answer a bit of Q&As as well. But one of the important factor of question that I hear a lot from a lot of candidates is, irrespective of people who are data scientists or who are becoming data scientists, the people who are learning AI stack, want to become an AI ML engineer, right? What has been your experience for people who have already been working into the domains like backend or into the cloud space? And while the organizations are trying to hire them, what is the difference for people who already are enabled with the stack of AI that makes in a software development or application development lifecycle with respect to people who are not aware about that stack? Because while we were doing the JD analysis, right, we have seen clearly that organizations are gradually rushing for people who know that stack, who are able to work collectively in an environment with the team altogether. So I think if we can throw a bit of light, right, I think a lot of people who belong from that individual point of view can also understand the requirement, right, and why there is a demand and supply, right, which is getting nurturement.
Sure. Yeah. So one very important aspect to understand, like for these kind of things, right? Think about the AI application. Where can it reside, right? So one place could be that maybe the AI model needs to be, or ML model needs to be deployed on your device. So that entails a completely separate set of considerations. So maybe your model cannot be so big that it like overflows. And as far as I know, it cannot leverage GPU because most of the models the phone will not have, right? So that's immediately asks you to understand the intricacies around, okay, what kind of model can I deploy? How can I train that model? So for example, what if your data can never leave your phone and you want to deploy a face detection model that works for everyone's face? So that leads you into, let's say, learning, federated learning, and think about, okay, optimizing it. So how do you make sure that the model is squeezed enough and is powerful enough to be deployed on a phone? Likewise, imagine now the other side of the world where you have a web service, but in this web service is hosted on the cloud, and your model is, imagine your model is literally the server logic. So you send a post request with your input data, and you're supposed to get an answer back. But the calculation that will happen to give that answer back, it will benefit the most from hardware that is optimized to run your inferencing. That essentially means that if an ML engineer is able to think through, okay, my application to support throughput, just like any other application will use, let's say, Kubernetes and autoscaling and what have you. But for optimizing a single inference, it might make a lot of sense to, let's say, have nodes that have GPUs on them, right? It will make a lot of sense if the model I deploy, that model's graph is squeezed without throwing away a lot of performance issues. How do I squeeze it? So maybe learning TensorRT and TensorRT LLM and these kind of things to make sure that you can take a sub-optimized model graph and create a better JIT out of it and deploy it, right? So that is where, I mean, some of these capabilities around like, marrying throughput and latency. But here the latency is not just about writing a bit order n square versus order n kind of a code, but it's more about understanding hardware aware stuff. And I mean, that is where the differentiation lies. Yes.
That certainly helps. And Andrew, what you have been able to see, right? The people who have been pretty enabled in terms of their knowledge respected to AI, right? As colleagues, how easy it has been for you and how easy it has been for organizations as well, right? To hire them and be confident about their architectural insights as well. When the organizations are trying to hire those candidates. And while you have also been in certain participations across the industries, right, giving through the interview sections as well. So what has been your observation when you are going through the interview rounds as well?
Right, and I guess you're asking that in terms of like they're trying to come into the data science perspective, or in what particular scenario?
So I would be asking more aspect of non-data scientist and non-ML roles, right? What I'm trying to understand is that a lot of people who have joined today's session, right, they might not be the data scientists, not be the ML engineers, right? They are trying to leverage the knowledge of AI and ML in their respective domains that they already belong. And as we have been observing closely, right, all of the job description, that there is a requirement of AI ML streak, right, which is being there, and the people who are there. Yeah.
Sorry, Abhay, sorry, I kind of forgot to mention a few more things, and
Sure,
maybe
yeah,
some
Parivesh.
other questions I forgot to mention are that, for example, if you have a service that is model driven, right? You might also again have observability kind of things, right? The typical kind of observability kind of things that you have for any other service. But the things that might change is that the metrics you track, right? So for example, in a generative AI use case, you might like to track, for example, time taken to first token, right? So you might like to write infrastructure that, let's say, captures the logs on Prometheus and tries to see, for example, what was the time, how much time does it take for a single request. So all that kind of tooling, you a backend person might expect to work on. The only difference being that now the service is AI model sitting under it. And then, of course, things like when the things are when a model is getting is doing inferencing, you want to write some tools maybe to monitor the GPU utilization. So what I have seen personally is that some of those very bespoke things that come because you want to track the backend, look at backend also from these other lenses, like GPU utilization, how much time it is taking for the first token, for example, and any other of these very specific observability kind of things and logging kind of things that are very particular to models as compared to like a typical service, like a normal application program.
Certainly makes sense. Yep. Thank you so much, Parivesh. Yeah, Andrew, over to you. I think you were speaking about that insights as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the kind of thing that we're looking for, like I said, I think a lot of this is more on the ML ops side, at least in my eyes, right? And kind of what we're expecting there. I think a lot of it's going to be an engineering feat, right? Do you understand these cloud-based platforms very well, right? Do you understand the data science, machine learning, AI lifecycle, right? Whenever we hire for these roles, we're looking for that kind of application. Do you understand how things scale, right? That's going to be a big thing. I think Prya kind of mentioned that, right? It's how these things scale from application to application, how we can actually use them in our applications, understanding how we can pretty much take this model that we built and be able to put into production in some capacity, right? That's definitely going to be very useful, at least for the kind of thing that we're looking for at our company. They have a variety of different skill set, more on the engineering side, but it's definitely it's not completely out of the same ballpark, right? These kinds of engineering roles can transition to those kinds of like ML ops-ish roles. That's definitely something that we can that we've seen before in the past, and the skill sets are very, very similar.
Understood. That certainly helps. So let me take the Q&A. I'll give you a bit of rest for sure, right? I think it's almost been more than 40 minutes, right? That you both are addressing the questions, but yeah, I would be requiring your inputs as well, right? While am answering some Q&As over here. So Rohan has asked, when I received the email, it says how SDAT and senior SDAT can up level to AI/ML career. What domain of AI/ML best suits for SDAT? How long does it take to up level to AI/ML career? Is data scientist a path to AI/ML engineer path, or is there an AI/ML SDAT role? So Rohan, I think the requirement of a software development lifecycle still requires all of the existing people, right? The addition which has happened is that how people who are pretty enabled across as a data scientist, as AI/ML engineer experts, right? How they can bring their expertise and we can create together an application or an software altogether, right? Which is going to be helping us in nurturing, right? Much more advances on the AI stream altogether. But the parallel, how it was already trained, it still remains the same in the segment altogether, right? So I have seen a lot of people who are from QE, SDET backgrounds, right, who have learned the aspects of AI. So what they have been able to learn specifically was that they were able to understand that gain some proficiency over the Python, right? How to work along with collab notebooks, how to understand about the deep learning concepts, and while they are also using a lot of cross-browser testing platform, application testing platform, right, as that post the delivery phase or during the delivery phases, right, they have been able to represent inside an interview round that they are already aware about the AML stack altogether. We have a dedicated program altogether, which is a combination of interview prep and also across the segment on how we can enable you on AI segment altogether. I think if you reach out to your program advisor, right, and you would have already received one of the enrollment agreement or going to receive it in a while, if you reply to that, represent your case that you are from senior SDAT stream, you're gonna make a transition. And if your objective is to land to a better role, better team altogether, better organization, right? I think the combination, which includes to enable you on AI/ML stream, is going to be a better path rather than making a switch altogether, right? To become a data scientist or changing your domain altogether. But by looking at your exposure, your experience, how many years of experience do you carry, right? I think the program advisor who is individually from my team can address your questions much more better. So please reply to them. I think they would be able to connect with you one-on-one and certainly would be able to address your question, Rohan. I have been able to also see one of the question, right? Previously, will there be any QA roles in a ML AI domain or QA needs to transition to data engineers? Balram asked it and already, I think Parivesh and Andrew has already answered it over there. But what I wanted to add over that reply was that we have also seen some of the people, right, who have intended to gradually transition from an quality analyst or data analyst or business analyst, all three segment of roles, and they want to learn the component of AI and how they can learn a bit of better data visualization tools, right? They can understand the stack of neural networks, create some application, capstone projects, and transition. We have a dedicated program of data science switch up for them. So please reach out to your program advisor, Balram, and I think they will be able to address that if you are intended to just switching to a different organization, what kind of compensations you can leverage out of that. If you can spend almost 6 to 7 months more, right, in an usual manner, along with your existing role, if you are already working, then how you can even transition to that bracket altogether as well. Nilesh has
Abhay, I
asked,
can, sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
Abhay, I can see two people have, two attendees have raised their hands. Maybe
oh,
we can
sure,
just ask them to ask their questions
sure,
as
sure,
well.
sure,
Yeah,
sure, sure.
sure.
Please unmute them. Yep, I'm so sorry. I was just looking at Q&A.
So, yeah. Uh, yeah, Arka Prabhu, we have already
Yeah.
allowed you to talk.
Yeah,
Please
hello,
feel free to
Akash.
pitch your question.
Hi,
Hi.
please ask me a question. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my question was more with respect to the topics that Parivesh was addressing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a ML engineer. I have done MVPs on Gen AI, implemented like a medium complexity RAG application, fine-tuned an embedding model, did some prompt engineering on ChatGPT 3.5, got and built a MVP chatbot UI on top of it with
Yeah,
good like 85 to 90% accuracy, so which was
yeah,
appreciated. But now, in terms of taking these applications to production scale, right? Some of the
yeah,
skill sets talking about in terms of, let's say, quantization or figuring out how to squeeze the graphs, and essentially doing only as much as it takes, right? Not over engineering it, right? Because then that means cost and that means resource and scaling and all those stuff, right? So to gain those skills, are there any resources that you could suggest where we could learn those skills by going through those resources?
So so the Gen AI course, for example, right, where I cover and our instructors also, when they teach that, they cover, for example, the intricacies around the LLM inferencing, right, and different tools you can use to squeeze performance. So like you said, right, like quantization, uh, post-training quantization, or mixed precision training during and various other techniques like tensor fusion and all these kind of things. So we teach about those things, and we also give you some exposure around compression of models through distillation. But I mean, the LLM optimization is something that we can talk on and on and on. But we do cover things like KV cache and speculative decoding and many things like that. What is it? Speculative decoding. And then we also talk about things like in-flight batching. So all these very specific LLM-based optimizations we do cover in the Gen AI text-to-text class.
Okay, meaning I'm already part of the ML course, so I'm a student in that course. So this is a separate course that you're suggesting, right? Meaning there is no bridge course for Gen AI or something that you guys are planning, right?
I am, yeah. So I think for these kind of experiences, you will have to probably tap into the more technical program. I think that's called ML Switch Up, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe Abhay can guide you, and other program people can guide you much better. But because we have a lot of Gen AI offerings, so maybe some other thing might also be covering it. So
Okay,
feel free to contact them. Yeah.
Thank
Sure.
you.
So, Arka, like you are currently already in which individual program? Are you continuing with one of the MS Switcher program currently?
Not switch up. I'm in the ML, what is it called? Step up or something? The 3 months one.
Okay, level up, the level up
Level up.
program,
Level up.
level up.
Yeah.
Understood. So, yes, so the intention for that individual program is not to teach you the new components or advancement of technologies, right, which you are already part of, but moreover with recognition of how we can prep you for interviews that you are going to face. But we have got some advanced Gen AI and also applied Gen AI programs, right? I think a lot of people who have been into segments with a level up program, they are individually taking those individual programs as well, so they can learn all the components what Parivesh also mentioned. What would be best is that you can specifically reply to one of the mails, right? You would have already received from one of our program advisor. Ask them specifically for applied Gen AI and advanced Gen AI program details altogether. And I think we are covering a good set of stack, right, related to the AIML stream over there. And I think that should be able to give you a resolution for sure. Worth learning all of these individual skill sets.
And how much of that exposes you to hands-on experience and more, or is mostly theoretical?
No, it's not theoretical at all, right? So this intent is that how we can share the exposure from instructors like Parivesh, right, and you who are already associated. So you can learn that aspect as well. And you are not just learning the jargon or theoretical approach. You are again solving the same components like you do in the level of programs, right? So the structure remains the same. You are having typical Sundays session classes. You get the free component before the classes, have the assessments to solve in altogether, right? There are real life capstone projects as well that is also based upon your individual profile that is also being customized over there. And as he mentioned, right, there is no end on how you can optimize, right, the LLMs altogether as you move ahead. So we have actually three programs. So the if somebody is just looking to learn the foundational aspect, we have applied Gen AI. Somebody who's already aware about that, working onto the streams, right, or the products in the creation, they can join up the advanced generative AI program, which take almost 8 weeks in comparison. And then there are also people, right, who want to specifically learn the component of ML ops as well. So there are also people who take that individual component segment as well, right? So I think the program advisor will be able to share not only the details about it, but also the core and curriculum along with the timeline. So I think that will give you a better overview for sure while we will be moving ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Aka. I think there was someone else as well. Ramana was there. Let me unmute you, Ramana.
Yeah,
You have again gone mute, Romana. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can clearly hear you. Yep. Please go ahead.
I am from backend engineering. I have 20 plus years experience in this area. But I would like to get onto the AML, but I am not sure where I have to start, whether it fits for my skill set, and how much effort I need to put, and how many months or weeks it will take to get onto AML, and any mathematical background needed. I don't have any clue, but I'm IK alumni.
Okay. So we are running almost this one program, right, which is machine learning switch up. And it has passed on more than beyond a year altogether at this point of time. There have been a lot of people, right, who have gradually transitioned from the stream of back-end full stack engineering, and now they have been successfully able to encompass their ML division, gradually made a transition, whether they want to make a direct transition to FANG or tier one, or they wanted to make an internal job movement, right? Both segment of people are over there who have been able to do it successfully. So in terms of what would be the skills that you will be required, obviously there would be a good set of math skill that will be required. And this program, we already start from the foundation. So we are even starting building your proficiency in Python, because a lot of people might not be proficient in Python. So that covers all the aspects. In the live setup, it takes almost 8+ months for learning, and almost next 2 to 3 months, right, in the interview prep segment. That is the total timeline. We have also seen some people able to boost it up if they are already in the job market as well. So you can reach out to your program advisor. I think in terms of the curriculum, right, what are the skills that you are being required, whether it is related to the classical ML, foundational ML, the advanced ML concepts, mathematical skill, a bit of coordination between you and data scientists, all be able to understand the mathematical limitation skill altogether, and what could be the real life short projects or capstone projects that you will be creating, right? The mini projects you will be creating out in the journey. I think the curriculum will certainly be highlighting every component week on week. So I think that will be able to help you out to make a decision for sure. And going through the other picture altogether, we as the session started, right, with highlighting that a lot of people who are already in the respective domains, their intent is not considerably to make a switch to a different profile. They want to stay in the domain that they are part of. There could be a lot of people, right, out of the people who are still here. So for them, we have created a different program. It's more of a combination of two programs. So how we can help them first learn the individual skills of AI, and then through the interview prep segment. That program typically takes almost about 4.5 to 5 months altogether. That is called an adjunct program. So you can also discuss about that as well, right? If your intent is not to change your domain, then that would be a fit. If your intent is already that you want to work across as a developmental stack ML engineer, then obviously the program I mentioned earlier, which is ML switch up program, is much more prominent for you.
Okay, in the ML switch up, I don't require much mathematical background to brush up.
Let
Sure,
me rope in.
yeah,
Let me give
sure.
some inputs there. So yeah, I primarily I only teach courses in ML switchup, and so there and I think Andrew also does the same thing. There I think we have primers, proper primers on math, and let me be very categorical about saying that, and not to intimidate anyone, but the depth that you go into mathematically is also commensurate with the kind of coding assignments you get. So the projects and the theory go hand in hand. I wouldn't say that um, theory is the only thing you do. Likewise, I wouldn't say that projects are the only thing you do. I personally feel, because we cover like Gen AI, we cover probability, statistics, I mean, um, reinforcement learning, computer vision, NLP. It is a full-blown 11-month proper hardcore ML thing with both kind of experiences, projects as well as theory. So I personally feel that it's very thorough, and if you stay the course, and if you're able to ride the wave up and down, and persevere, then I think you will come out having learned a lot and feeling much more confident.
And how much effort I need to put? This is 11 months program. I think it has a lot of areas covered, but at the same time, working full time and family life and this learning curve, everything, because sometimes in the financial background, the organizations, the work is little heavy compared to the other that I feel. So can I'm not sure that how much effort is
Got
required at that.
quite a bit of effort, and I would say that way. I don't want to intimidate anyone, but what I'm trying to say is that I think it's much better to be practical. So from what I'm hearing, Abe is telling that there are a gazillion, different kinds of programs we have. I would probably recommend you to like first dip your toe, and I think those are also. It's not like our other programs do not cover any theory at all, but it could totally happen that maybe we'll cover only sufficient degree of theory and more practical experience versus here, which is almost like 60-40 or even 50-50. So I feel that you can talk to your program managers and accordingly pick up something that is commensurate with your time commitments. But it does need effort. I feel that that effort is helpful purely because you're learning a difficult field, plus you're learning a competitive field, plus you are learning to go into a job market, which will be unforgiving that way, right? So please take all your practical things into consideration, and with the kind of different programs IK has, I'm sure you will find something very compatible with your time commitments and your learning objectives. 100%.
Surely, Parivesh. And I would like to add some points, right, as you rightly mentioned. I do not recommend a lot of people, right, who are having almost beyond 12 to 14 years of experience, right, to make a domain switch. The reasoning is
Correct.
pretty simple that all of your experience that you carry, right, that won't be valued over there while you try to make a transition into a different domain altogether. It works very good with people who are under 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years of experience band, right? Because the compensation they would be earning with respect to their experience, right? And the expectation as well, right? That could be easily maintained by not only the recruiters, hiring managers, but by you as well while you are representing your case as a good candidature. When it reaches to almost 20, 21 years of experience band, right, it becomes very difficult to convince altogether as a proximary. And that is something that we have been able to observe, right? So we were denying a lot of people in that experience band already who should not be joining our ML switcher program previously. And a lot of people who were going into the interview rounds, they mention us, and as by the start of this session, right, we mentioned that we have been observing job descriptions very, very diligently from almost last November on how many of those job descriptions, irrespective to non-ML engineering or non-data scientist roles, they require good to have our mandatory AI skill. And that's why we created this Edge Up program offering, right? So people can also learn the aspect of AI, and then the domain that they belong to, they can make a transition. So at least they can get better compensation in a market, and they can also leverage their existing experience and the domain that they have been part of. So that has been the same reason I mentioned, right? That I think you are looking out how you can become an AI ML engineer. It's low. It looks very intimidating, as a lot of people are driving that way. But I think you need to reconsider, right, which was is going to be a long-term beneficial approach for you, and that's why you should reach out to your program advisor. I think it's not going to be that challenging in terms of coping up with the pace or anything, because people usually invest 12 to 14 hours, irrespective of any of the program, whether they are joining the edge up or whether they are joining the machine learning switch up. The timeline, the total timeline could vary from 5.5 months to almost 9 or 12 months altogether. That is the only difference. Every component is majorly across on weekends or in the evenings in the weekdays. So I don't think so timing is going to be a challenge, but I think, yeah, the decision, right? I think you should be very thorough with the expectation what you are going to get. And I think then you should be making a decision with your career.
Yeah. I think from because I typically so ML switch up is more like think about a pure hardcore IC role,
Right.
individual contributor role, right? So now the question is, from your 20 years of experience of whatever individual contribution I've done in your field, do you think 11 months, do you want to do like a complete sea change and become an IC in some completely different area? So imagine how much knowledge you will have to compress in 11 months. So everything will change according to that, right? And you will not be able to leverage very likely what you are already done in 20 years. So think about all those things practically.
Yeah,
And then I
most of my career is an individual contributor role, and I see some of the openings in my organization. They are having control manager, artificial intelligence, generative AI, generative artificial intelligence integration, applied AI ML lead. They're all different titles. I'm not sure which one it is. Based on this, I can come like category manager or some. There are like machine learning engineer. There are so many titles. There are openings in my organization. So I'm thinking that by learning this, taking that 4 or 5 months course and applying internally, that may help. Uh,
Yeah, I'm sure that Abhay and team can guide you much better that way.
Yeah,
okay.
surely. I think there are a lot of job roles, right? I just don't want to overwhelm you with a lot of information unnecessarily. What would I advise Ramana is that you reach
Mhm.
out to your program advisor, right? And rather than
Mhm.
discussing more about the program, I think the kind of job roles you are looking to target, right? Discuss first about them with them, that what could be a gradual transition I can easily make, and they would be able to guide you, right? The similar set of transitions they have been able to see with the people, right, who join us, and then they would be able to give you a lot of examples as well, right, of people who have done that. I think that will give you a
Okay.
better confidence in the appropriate role altogether. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I have another
Yeah,
last question.
sure,
This
sure.
a program advisor or SSA?
SSA is different. SSA are working from operational side. So
Mhm.
SSA are working moreover when you are having any issues while you are already have joined a program, right? So they are student success associates who are making
Mhm.
sure that you are doing well inside the program. The program
Mhm.
advisors are the people who are going to give you guidance across your career stream. So you would have
Yeah.
received one of the enrollment links, right? If you reply to the individual enrollments link, right, then the
Uh-huh.
program advisor is going to reach you out for sure. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay
Thank
then.
you.
Yep. Thank you, Ramana. Yep. Let me take another questions pretty quickly. Do you see, Nilesh has asked one of the question, right? Do you see more opportunities for AI, Gen AI roles than traditional ML roles? What current applied data science roles can do it to get into the Gen AI ML engineering roles? I did not get that question. I think, Nilesh, you are talking about that what current applied data science roles can get into the Gen AI ML engineering roles. I think they both are different roles altogether. I think Parivesh also stagnated across that even in data scientists, right? What are the four different kind of teams, right? In Amazon is able to absorb. So I think we would be requiring much more context on what you are trying to ask. You can reach out to program advisor or maybe reply with one of the other individual mails, or I can unmute you, right? And you can ask your question as well for sure. So I can
I think
address
I
it.
kind of got what he's asking. So broadly, I would say, I mean, I don't think everyone, I mean, let me put it this way, like everyone who has a hammer doesn't need to look at everything as a nail. So what I'm trying to say is that there are really, really very attractive jobs, not just in Gen AI, but across the AI industry. And it's not like there's a tectonic shift in terms of the skills. Okay, you will have to learn something very particular, but it's not like it is a major switch. So I would say like I don't like throw everything and start like only looking for Gen AI roles, although they are very rampant. But trust me, I mean, the news that you see on pre-trained models versus the Gen AI use cases you see in firms, right? There's a pretty big gap, and I think jobs will continue flowing. So I think if I were you, I'll probably make myself more and more equipped to, of course, understand AI also much better, like because that's also huge, and understand Gen AI also, so that I can make a very informed decision some months down the line.
Oh,
So I would say
thank,
like we should not directly jump into a trend right away.
thank you so much, Parivesh, for answering and helping me out. What is the difference between AI and ML? Generative AI in terms of use case and generative AI, is it suitable for which individual role? Kalpana has asked it. I think, Parivesh, you already answered difference between AI and ML, I think, previously. So
Correct.
Kalpana, I believe that is already being answered. And the differentiation, right, across these individual streams, I think it's pretty evident, right, that you can diverged from the same answer as he mentioned, right? That how those streams are following up. I think another question from Lakshmi Narayan, which is the best path for data engineering manager to transition to engineering manager at AIML? Are system design rounds covered for ML engineering manager as well? That is another question.
This is one question I see, and I find think about this, right? So an engineering manager role in AI/ML most likely would have like built shipped products that had some AI embedded components in them, right? So imagine that whichever area you are an engineering manager in, data engineering manager, right? If an AI engineering manager wanted to get into data engineering manager, what would you want? You'd want something on the resume, something in the skill set that speaks very loudly of you being able to marshal a project in that area. And if you have a litany of things that you have delivered. So I feel the best strategy in this case could be within your firm, you start like looking for roles that have AI and ML products in them. Steep yourself up, get a few things on your resume. And of course, simultaneously build your skill using IK. And then when the time is right, you can think about going out and looking for fresher pastures. But I feel that it's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So you mentioned about moving internally within the company.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking on that route as well. Like even in that case, would the hiring manager ask me about the prior experience in that ML or AI?
I feel at least if you understand, and that is where I think some of the IK programs will help you, right? Is like, okay, an engineering manager, what kind of viewpoints that person needs to have so that he or she can ship a product that has an AI component in it. So that might need, okay, I need an ML engineer in my team because I need to deploy something. I need scientists in my team. I need I need engineers, regular engineers, cloud engineers, people who understand the stack also to make sure that we can monitor the services like any other service, right? So I think there at least it will be helpful. But I feel that if we do not understand the model life cycle, a model ML life cycle, then I think any other person will not be able to take a very quick call on your skills that way, right? So I feel that of course, like you should pick up skills that that talk of those aspects. Otherwise, you will literally be like you will have nothing to talk about on especially for those pieces that need tied with the AI component of engineering.
Exactly. I have seen recently about two of the individual candidates as well. I think they were in the similar spectrum of cases as well. They were from the data engineering backsets and they wanted to transition right gradually to EM on the AML set as well. What they did was that we were able to initially help them in segments of learning AI ML components through the Gen AI program altogether, where they created some real life test cases, right, in the form of capstone projects. And they reached out to their individual directors altogether to represent the case that they have not been able to just learn the AI component over and above their existing skills. They have been able to also learn the additional skills on leadership level, the conflict resolution requirement as well. They have also been able to enable themselves with that individual skill set. And now they are gradually looking to work across any product, right, which is going to be AI ML enabled. Gradually they both of them have usually got those projects as well. So I think one of the individual program which is edge up, a combination of first learning the AI segment, then later on learning the leadership skill and also helping you in interview transition, right? That could be a better program that can directly impact and help you out altogether.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Lakshmi. So I have John who is asking how competitive is the job market these days in AI ML, especially compared to the crowded fields of front end, back end development, etc. So John, I think there are three segments of roles, right, which are in demand altogether. And I'll also give you a bit of overview about the supply and demand as well, right? So we can understand how the job market is moving out altogether. So first of all, there is requirement of exceptional AI ML individuals altogether, whether the research scientist, data scientist, or AI ML engineers, generative AI engineers, you would be able to already see, right, all these positions. Every organization required to create a product, right, or a service related to AI, and they need those experienced people, right? The supply is almost short, and the demand is quite lot altogether, right? So you will always see the best number of compensational figures, right, over that aspect. Second on priority, the people, right, who are trying to gradually transition from early to mid levels across the stream of AI ML. So they were already working on a different domain. Now they have learned the component of AI. They want to transition their career, so they could be a better prospects, right, in the job market. The third segment is that people who are individually working in their own domain altogether. So they are still the backend engineer, full stack engineers, but they are having an edge because they are aware about the AI component, right? And that is what the entire session was all about, how the people who are able to learn the component of AI, even if they want to remain in the domain that they are part of, they are getting edge over the other candidates in the market, right? While they are interviewing or while they are going through different segment of round of interviews. And that is what we are trying to fulfill, right? And in terms of opportunities in the second and third class, the second is going pretty good. It's expected to go at least for next to 3 to 2 years, or almost 4 years until it is being saturated. The third segment, where individual people who are already working on domain specific skills and also have learned the component of AI, right? They are already in demand, are being expected very good compensation bracket. And the curve on how they are being hired is going to dip down as we go in next 2 to 3 years. Why so? Because a lot of individual candidates, right, who will be fresh graduates, they will be coming by learning those components with respect to the existing engineers who are not looking to up-level themselves. So they will fill those positions at the lowest level of the bracket. So the better, the sooner, right, you gain that competency, the better would be the chances, right, that you are going to get those positions altogether. I hope that answers. Smita has another question. What
Hey,
kind of
Abhay,
tools?
sorry to interrupt. I
Yeah.
think I can see Nihat raising his hand.
Oh, yeah,
Can you
sure, sure.
please?
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. Yeah, I can. Smita, I'll come back to you in a bit. Yeah, hello, Nihat.
Hello. So, yeah, my name is Nihat Inan. So my current position is I'm working as an embedded software engineer. I've been doing that for a few years. I'm kind of mid-level, and before that, I was a automated test engineer. And so I'm thinking of what I can do kind of for my next career opportunity. And I'm looking at some roles at FANG companies. And another thing I'm also considering, because I've heard a lot about it, is transitioning into a role that involves AI and machine learning or deep learning. I guess something I'm trying to determine, and this question already might have gotten answered, if whether I should switch to a role that is completely a machine learning or AI engineer role. It seems like instead of that, it might be better to utilize my current background to find something that is uses my current experience for a project that involves AI. So if there's any insights that you could provide regarding that, I would appreciate it.
So I usually don't recommend, right, people making domain switching and a
Yes.
transition at the same point of time, right? Because not only it should be acceptable by organizations that you are looking to switch, but it also requires a more of most set of combination with your experience, compensation bracket, and all of that. The better way how people have been able to get succession is that they were able to first transition to those better organizations, right, where they were able to get a good set of scope to work in multiple products. They learn the component of AI altogether in the stream to crack those interview rounds. And if they wanted to pursue the path because they have joined that software development team right altogether, and while working with ML engineers, data scientists, they were able to, I would say, structure that thought whether they even want to transition or required to do a domain switch. If they feel so, then they should be making a domain switching altogether. I think that is a better way to go out. So I would still recommend to make a transition first in a better organization on better compensation, right? Then once you are settled over there, right, you are interacting with a lot of AI ML engineers in the product. Then you can make a decision, right, whether the scope of KRS that they are performing, would you like to perform that or not?
I see. So you're recommending first transitioning to a better company in my current domain or a more similar domain would be better.
Right.
Um,
Right. So
I
as I
see.
recommended, right, there is a program of Ajab, and we have multiple combinations with that program. So somebody who is from embedded, somebody who's from backend, front end, and all other domains, right? We have created the composition for the same way or the same requirements. So everybody can first learn aspect of AI to enable themselves with the technological advancement, then crack the rounds, right, individual to their stream or their domain that they belong to. I think
Yeah,
that
I
program.
am I am an
And
IK alumni. I took an early engineering course and an embedded systems course that they had.
To add to that, Nihat, particularly in your area, maybe you could try like a hybrid of on device. So a lot of companies will be doing a lot of embedded systems, IoT level AI. So that world is also going to come alive. And I'm sure that you will be very well placed to take advantage, like to have an amalgamation of both those strands of knowledge. So I mean,
sorry, could you say that? So like kind of where
what I meant was that there are a lot of use cases that will get built increasingly more and more around IoT, right? Where you might be doing a lot of AI on like very small devices and stuff like that. So I feel a lot of that knowledge might come handy for in those areas. What you know, what you do.
I see. Is there kind of particular AI knowledge that I should still obtain before I try to transition to a different company in my current domain? I have taken some AI courses, deep learning AI in my graduate studies. Maybe that might be sufficient, kind of just reviewing that, or if there's and then
Yeah, I
maybe I
mean,
should just
you can always try and see what you're getting, right? And if you see that holds you in good stead, so be it. But if you don't, then IK is always there, and you can always, like, I think you can discuss more to even understand where you are, because I'm not privy to how much you learned and all. So I think that is where a program manager can help you assess that much better.
Sure. Kind of if I have to learn more kind of AI related things versus if I should focus more on like the knowledge in my current domain for interviews.
Surely. So I think, Nihat, before you took the early engineering program, right? The component that it would have only covered is the data structure algorithmic prep with the mock interviews altogether, right? Now the individual program that we are having is an offering of foundational skills of AI that is being required by a lot of individuals, right? While they are having discussions about the AI component altogether. And then also the domain specific skills that you are also going to cover in this program altogether. So I think once you will reach out to your program advisor, right, and ask them to share the curriculum of this individual set, the Agile program for embedded engineers, they will be able to share with you. And I think that will give a better clarity for sure.
I see. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then.
Great. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for clarifying.
Thank you, Nihat. We are running almost out of time. I'll just answer this 4 to 5 questions more, and then we will wrap up. Thank you so much for all of you to be here. So what kind of tools we use to our own documents to create a vector DB and use RAG with the OpenAI LLM models? Smita has asked over here.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so you need let's say an access to some encoder, right? Because you have a bunch of documents, you need to be able to, let's say, chunk them. So LangChain and stuff like that, some orchestrator that can help you, first of all, take your documents, process them, and then run them by some text encoder, and then put those embeddings on a vector database, right? So typically LangChain can interface with has functionalities to chunk data and all these kind of things, and then you can hook in a text encoder either from Hugging Face, or you can hook it from OpenAI. OpenAI has a bunch of text models. And if you have a multimodal encoder that you need, you can take something from Hugging Face that does multimodal encoding. And then they also interface with things like Pinecone and FIS, which is a vector DB solution, and also Llama Index. So you can put your deep vectors there, and then you can you can then hook in a final LLM. So given a query, you can query a DB, get context, embellish your initial prompt, and then do generation. But I think Andrew, if you want to add something quick there from your experience, by all means.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, I mean, I think hit it on the head, right? So, I mean, the LangChain is going to be the big key there, right, for RAG. But then, yeah, being able to kind of pull down models from Hugging Face. So think like a sentence transformer, right? Something that can embed sentences, paragraphs, things like that. And then all these vector databases, right? I mean, they're all open source, right? Think ChromaDB, VB8, Llama Index, right? There's so many out there that you can actually build out. And then at the very end, pulling out a model from OpenAI, but you can also pull stuff from Hugging Face if you want to again, right? Being able to pull out, things like, Falcon, things like that. You can even use OpenAI embeddings if you want to do that. In some ways, I'm not sure, Parvesh, you agree with this stuff with like LangChain. It kind of works better with OpenAI in some ways, with
Correct.
OpenAI embeddings and things
That's
like
correct.
that. So
That's correct.
yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, you did different ways of doing that for sure. But yeah, LangChain seems to be the big key there. And then just using the kind of stuff that's open source right now, be it Hugging Face, vector databases that exist out there, or OpenAI. So.
And by the way, like quick thing also, some of these tools you might not be able to use within a FANG, for example, because they might have their own equivalents of those things, but the underlying things don't change in terms of, okay, you need to be able to hook to an encoder, get embeddings, put it on a vector DB, and then being able to retrieve that and pass it to an LLM, right? That's the underlying leitmotif of this whole thing. That doesn't change.
Yeah, in practice, like it's very true in the healthcare space too. Like in the healthcare space, for example, so my company, my global company, McKesson, they are not allowing us to touch OpenAI whatsoever. That's a hard no. There's a lot of privacy issues with it. So when we use when we build our RAG applications, we're actually hosting our own LLM to try and do that. It's in some way kind of tricky.
Use Olama or something like that, right? Yeah. So there are several things you might have to change based on where you work and what they allow and all that. Anyway, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I think, yes, Smita, I think that certainly answers your question altogether. We are going to take almost 3 more questions. I think one I can pretty address it much more quickly. I think Matthew has asked that how would someone who has started as a software engineer transition to a career with the YAML, right? So just like any individual stream and component, right, you would have seen that a lot of individual instances or the profiles have gradually transitioned with learning the component. The ML has been pretty same as well. The only difference you could see in comparison to cloud or even with the test engineering, right? While you would have seen those profiles getting transition is that the application of AI could be utilized in any specific industry on any specific product, right? So the utilization is much more broader than any other context or any other domain altogether. And that's why it is possible for a lot of people to even transition their career route if they are still in the early ages of their career route. So that is something which would have given insight, Matthew. And I think to know more, obviously, how this transition looks like, you can reach out to the program advisor. In the meanwhile, I think there are 2 questions. Ram, I'm just going to unmute you by taking last question from the Q&A. The Amita has asked, what kind of Gen AI and natural language courses do you recommend? So Parivesh, is there any specific course that you would recommend?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you touched upon, right? There are a gazillion of Gen AI courses strewn across our different programs. But I'm more acquainted with, and I've seen what kind of things have permeated to other places. For the Gen AI courses, we typically cover 2 things in great detail. One is text to text. And in the second piece of it, we definitely cover a lot around images and other multimodal capabilities. So the Gen AI 2 is all about, let's say, taking text and emanating an image, or taking an audio and doing something with it, right? So those are the 2 broad set of courses, and they're very detailed. And given that reinforcement learning gets used a lot, especially in the alignment piece, DPO or RLHF, we have a full-blown reinforcement learning course just to make sure that we are very comfortable when we teach RLHF in the language boards. And above and beyond, and for the NLP part, we have many courses, like especially we go very in depth about starting from word level embedding models to like sentence transformers and the underlying math of it and transformers and all these other sequence kind of things, paradigms that we teach. And prior to that, we teach you a better PyTorch, and we teach you deep learning, and we teach you the math. And also, I think all of those things in tandem place you really well to take advantage of whatever courses we offer on the NLP/Gen AI front.
No, that is particularly helpful. So we are just going to take one more question. I'm just going to unmute Ram because we are already running out of time. Ram, I have unmuted you. Can you please ask your question? Hello. Yeah, hello, Ram. You are audible. Please ask me your question.
Oh, okay. So actually, I have 30-year plus experience, been an entrepreneur for 16 plus years, and kind of ready to, I mean, I do see potential in AI and ML, the impact they will have on small startups and as well as the opportunities out there. So I've been looking to kind of switch my role move back to corporate world. And I actually joined the Wharton School's CTO certification. It's going to start, but I already enrolled. And then I want to club it with AI ML, so that way I can find some a great opportunity, and I think transition will be easier. So that's what I'm trying to figure out what course I do. I think you have switch or level up, switch up, level up, and then I'm debating still like this. Wharton has a ML course by itself, and just debating what should I do.
Okay. So I think it would be requiring a bit more due diligence. The reason is that you are already enrolled to one of the courses, right? So we will also have to look across the schedule of your existing course and have to give you insights on what kind of transitioning you are looking to. So how many years of experience do you carry in total? I think you showcased that you were having almost 16 years of entrepreneurial experience. So have you made any gap in between, and how many years of gap that is?
No, I didn't make gap. I'm still running my company. Overall,
Okay.
I have 36 years of experience. And when
Okay.
it comes to the Wharton program, actually, I enrolled in the CTO program. It's not
Understood.
a AI or ML program. It might
Understood.
have a little bit of focus on that, but yeah. So trying to, find a complementary program to make it AI, ML, and CTO role.
What technological stack experience do you have, Ram, while working, right? Apart from the CTO and CEO experience altogether?
Yeah, my company currently is working on mobile applications, but
Okay.
apart from that, I have done work in telcos, companies like Alcatel Lucent, and then I have worked in the enterprise space in IBM, Fujitsu, and so multiple places. Of course, in 36 years, I've been all over the map.
So I think if you want to deep dive into the technical aspect, right, so that you can attain all of the knowledge as an ML engineer altogether, that could also be one course of action you can represent. If your intent in the future is you want to create your own set of product lineup, or could be a new advantageous, right, altogether application. If you want to still carry that entrepreneur skill right inside you, I think a lot of people who have joined us from the similar segments, from cybersecurity spaces, who have been backend engineers, right, and they carry the segment of entrepreneurship as well, and they wanna their future is that they wanna create their own set of product or services, right, to lead into the systems. I think that is a better route to transition. If your intent is just to make a switch, right, to just learn the foundational knowledge of artificial intelligence, the applied Gen AI program is a better fit for you, right, to lead to that segment
Yeah, I was
altogether.
debating on that program because,
Right.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please go ahead. Yeah, that is the only.
Yeah, so that,
Yep.
yeah, so I don't have much clue of AI ML right now. And I think if I go to Gen AI directly, I will struggle with fundamentals and right. And I think it will be hard even to work with the team where, I'm not able to communicate well with them on the, basic concepts or any problem solving meetings.
Mhm. So I think I can give you a better scale, right, to understand what could be different scales that you would be setting upon, right? The first is obviously the consumer side of scale, right, where you are using a lot of open AI and a lot of Google softwares, right, altogether. That could be a consumer metric. Then we have created one of our program, which is the applied Gen AI, where you get introduced to AI, right? So you can start understanding about the tensors, right, about transformers, how the LLMs are being tested, deployment, right? You gain insights about how the applications on Gen AI for images, audios are being created. If you want to work on the deployment side, then you move to the next stage, right, where you work across on applied Gen AI. And then if you want to like become an expert, right, that could be the last stage on the similar grounds like an ML engineer. I think that could be the fourth parameter of the scale, right? That could be an ML engineer, the switcher program that I'm talking about. So I think it all starts from the basic premise, and then how deep you want to do or you want to go right into the deep learning space altogether with understanding of your knowledge. The first set initially are just going to cover the foundational aspects, and as we go deeper, right, from the one to the other pathway, they are going to deep dive right into the ML stream. So the better picture, I think, if you want to get a representation, the program advisor, right, that you would be joining it, they can share all the curriculums, give you highlights on what are the outcomes of the program, right, you are able to attend. And I think that will give you a better picture altogether that what you are going to get as an outcome, right, from all of this 3 programs that we do have. And then if you want to just make a transition to a better organization while continuing this path, the edge up offering is already there, which includes the applied AI and the domain specific path, which almost takes I would say 5.5 to 6 months. If you want to deep dive like an ML engineer, then the MS switch of which takes almost a year, right, to do so. That could be a better path. But I think once you get the understanding about the outcomes, the week on week curriculum, right, you would be able to make a better and precise decision for yourself on what is the end goal.
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate the inputs.
Okay. Okay, then I think we have summed up all the questions all together. I'm so sorry if some of the questions were not getting answered, but please reach out to your program advisor. You all would have received one of the enrollment agreements. If you reply back to that, you can schedule a call with our program advisor. They can deep dive into your profile, your experience. A lot of the people who are over here with me, they have been the alums as well. So what programs you took previously and what are the additive programs will be required to go through, right? So they will also give you an entire construct about the same as well. And if you would be having any doubts and concerns, right, please reach out to us and we will be ready to help you. So thank you so much for joining in, and please reply to the mails you have received in your inbox. And before we move out, thank you so much, Parivesh, Andrew, for joining us for this wonderful session. I know we have stretched a bit, but yeah, thank you so much for joining in this Sunday evening, for sure.
Thank you and good luck, everyone.
Good luck,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot. Thanks, Parivesh.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Andrew.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for taking our time.